Do not. No lies.
Good to go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the May 1st, 2024 meeting of the Lyman Planning Board. This meeting will now come to order. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all exhibits that are offered. If the board goes into executive session, the reason for doing so shall be specifically stated. Please notify the chair if you have any difficulty seeing or hearing. This meeting is being recorded for YouTube. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinance or ordinances. After the board votes on the merits of each project, it will prepare a written opinion which will be forwarded within 7 days. The board works on a prepared agenda and will be considering this meeting's items in the following order. After a roll call, Mark LaPont at 212 Wadley Pond Road, Judy Morin and Steve Joyce at 1 South Waterboro Road, Jimmy Thing, Clark's Woods Road, subdivision performance guarantee, discussing revising that requirement, setting the agenda for our next meeting on May 15th, reviewing our minutes from the April 17th, 2024 public hearing and meeting. Public hearing meeting?
No, just the meeting.
Sorry.
Sorry.
And under old business, an update on the Harper Residential Subdivision. And it's on the southern portion of town off of Kennebunk Road. Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Long may she wave.
All right, roll call, Bill, just the introductions.
Bill Single, 8 Single Lane.
Kelly Demers, 10 Partridge Way.
Joe Wagner, 26 Day Road.
Cecile Dupuy, 53 Chapel Shores Road.
Kevin Bear, 64 Buckingham Pond Road.
Don Herman, 33 Murphy's Way.
All right. First on the agenda is Mr. LaPointe, but he will not be in attendance, I believe.
He is putting off his plans at this time. He says he currently is not ready to go forward with the deck, moving the deck, adding to the deck. It might not happen until next spring.
I see.
He will
Okay.
let us know.
So there's no point in tabling if it's sort of indefinite, so postpone.
We'll put him back in when he lets us know.
Very good. Let's move on to Judy Morin and Steve Joyce of the J. Jakes LLC, 1 South Waterboro Road, map 13, lot 012. Proposed use of the hall, the nearby church for yoga, Pilates, personal treatment rooms, use of the original church by a newly created church and a small congregation, also a space for groups.
Mr. Chair, for the record,
Mhm.
I have known Mr. Joyce for a number of years. We belong to at least 2 organizations together, so I want to make that publicly known, and I will recuse myself from any voting during these proceedings.
Noted. Thank you. Will the applicants please come forward and explain?
Do you want your application?
Sure. We have the application itself.
Do you want me to explain what yoga is? 'Cause I really have no idea.
Will you demonstrate?
No.
I think we're good. But just
So-
anybody have in mind?
So there's actually 3 sections of the building. Obviously, there's the original church, and there are some small congregations around southern Maine that are looking for a home. So that's for that section of the building. And then in the rear section, the most recent addition is a big empty space with 3 or 4 offices, and which that's where the yoga and Pilates and all that other stuff. I'll let her address that part. So.
Yeah, and it's really, it's a wellness-based, all the wellness-based services, so it would be things like, Steve said, this beautiful room in there, perfect for yoga,
Mhm.
Pilates, fitness. We'll have treatment rooms for massage, probably for coaching, some rooms for coaching, smaller meeting space as well, you know, so it's really, it's all wellness, they're all wellness.
Any questions from the board?
So, classification, what use would that fall under?
Ah.
And, is that a residential zone or is it, general
Right behind
purpose?
us. My assumption is general purpose.
I don't think so. Should be residential.
Sorry for the hiccup.
Residential.
Okay.
Residential.
It's all residential.
So,
So it's all residential district.
Mhm.
okay.
Sounds good. We have church,
We do have
Okay,
to-
lot of use.
and this would be,
I believe the other stuff falls under person services, the category.
Professional.
versus service business. Church,
Personal service.
business, bottom of page 10 on the chart.
And the definition of personal services, a business that offers a professional services such as, but not limited to, barbers, hairdressers, beauticians, masseuses, and tanning salons.
Above and beyond. So, under those categories, I think it qualifies within that particular zone. I think the next step would be setting up a sidewalk. Would that be correct? And would it be possible to set a public hearing at the same time, not at the same time, but while we're doing that? What do you think of that? For the amount of time that we need for advertisement for the sidewalk, I would assume that would put us within May, let's see, 4th, 11th. Just thinking of Saturdays, maybe the 11th or the 18th. Julie, what would be the date that would be in compliance with the public notification requirements?
For a sidewalk,
Mhm.
the 11th. To be able to get the word out. I think this Saturday is too soon
No,
to be
no,
able
no,
to
no.
notice. So I would say a sidewalk on the 11th.
Would that be all right with all parties involved?
Mhm.
And a different time,
10 o'clock in the
10
morning.
o'clock sounds good to me.
10 a.m.? Okay. And we do have your phone number in the event of any type of necessity to postpone or reschedule. To 205,
Yeah, you got it.
sorry. And would it be possible to schedule a public hearing at this point as well?
Don't see why we can't unless something comes up at the sidewalk, which, I mean, we walk over now.
Do we have to, go through the pre-application list to make sure that they have all the
I do believe
requirements?
so.
And before we have a public hearing, we'll make sure that they have.
So, set the public hearing date, and go back to the checklist or checklist first. What's the preference? Like checklist?
Do we usually do that first, the checklist before the
Yeah,
public
let's make
hearing?
sure
I think
we're-
so,
Mhm.
yeah.
Let's see. Required for submittal, a fee established by the Board of Selectmen. Fee has been submitted.
Yes, it has.
Okay. 2 sets of mailing labels for abutters. And then we have a list of the abutters there.
I have labels.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Site plan, drawn to scale not smaller than 1 inch equaling 40 feet. And according to with the plans, so 1 inch equals 22 feet.
I hate to suggest that we waiver it because of instances in the past.
Would it be possible to submit another site plan with the 1 inch equals 40 feet requirement?
Well, it says not smaller than 1 inch equals 40, so I just blew it up so I can get all the information.
I know,
You want me to shrink it?
well, with the smaller scale that we have here,
That's true, that's
more
true. That's,
visibility.
So
Not
it's
small.
larger, right? Yeah.
So
so this is what?
I think we're good.
I retract my statement.
Okay.
Good catch, Steve.
Can we recuse everything that he says?
I gotta go home.
All right.
We don't want
Name and address of the applicant, plus the name of the proposed development, indeed. Total floor area, ground coverage, location of each proposed building or addition. I believe that is on the site plan.
It's existing.
You're not doing any new construction.
Let me see, that perimeter survey of the parcel made by made and certified by a registered land surveyor licensed in Maine. Relating to reference points, plan must show true magnetic north. A graphic scale, corners of the parcel, date of the survey, and total acreage. Here we have. And what we have is a very fine site map, but no indication that this was done by a licensed land surveyor.
It was, I can get you a copy of that, because when I blew it up, I cut that part off.
Oh, please, that was, again, that shows the license stamp and also the date and magnetic north. Okay.
Copy of what?
All existing and proposed setback dimensions.
Not applicable to existing structure.
Survey.
The size, location, direction, and intensity of illumination of all major outdoor lighting apparatus and signs. I don't see how that would be applicable here. The type, size, and location of all incineration devices, not applicable. The type, size, and location of all machinery likely to generate appreciable noise at lot lines. We believe that yoga tends to be rather quiet.
Yes.
Until who's there.
Location, type, and size of all existing proposed catch basins, storm drainage facilities, wetlands, streams, water courses, as well as all utilities of both above and below ground. We need some sort of topographic information on this.
It's not on here.
We're just kind of looking up and back in those.
Yeah.
There it be.
Existing catch basins and storm drainage.
Mhm.
Do you have historical documents on this property? You must have
Historical?
access to the historical documents.
Showing what? I'm not sure.
That
what
would
it-
show that information, where all they got, where the drainage is and.
Well, there are no catch basins over there.
And you're not on wetlands. That's a situation pretty far into this area.
Okay.
All existing contours and proposed finished grade elevations. Again, we're talking about topography here.
They're not going to be altered.
Nothing's going to be altered. There's no reconstruction here, so as is. Location, type, and size of all curbs, sidewalks, driveways, fences, retaining walls, parking space area, and layout thereof together with dimensions. The parking spaces are shown there. Would it be possible to include the dimensions of the parking spaces?
And they should comply with what our ordinance, right?
Right, in terms of what the minimum
It's
requirements are.
existing, so wouldn't it be grandfathered, even if they don't? He's
I
not
guess if
changing.
they're already designated, if they're already marked.
They are
They
They
are,
are.
they're
I,
already,
I just went and counted up the lines and
The lines are
and
drawn.
put it on there.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
All proposed landscaped areas, size and type of plant material. Not planting any more material on the property. 13, all existing or proposed rights of way, easements, other legal restrictions. Anything applicable here in the way of rights of ways, easements on the property. Property lines of all properties abutting the proposed development, including properties across the street, across the water body. With the tax map and lot numbers and owner's name, mailing addresses on file in town hall within 10 days of filing the application. It's showed on the site map and also on the list of abutters. So that is addressed. An approximate box on each page for sign for signatures. Got that here. A documentation of the right title and interest of the proposed site. We have that. All on-site soil investigating reports made by Maine State Licensed Site Evaluator. The report shall type of soil, location of test pits, other proposed locations. And again, this is not a new construction project, so would that be applicable in any way?
It's existing, so
Mhm.
not applicable.
I think we're good.
What kind of you have existing septic there?
Yes.
Mhm.
Do you,
Go ahead, Don.
I was just wondering, whatever the business is, what the rating of the septic is,
What the what?
what the rating of the septic system is.
I don't have that
No, I don't, not
information.
asking for right this second, but I mean, you should, if your business is gonna generate a certain number of people there,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see if it will support that.
There must be a document
It used to be a
that
church.
exists from when the church was
I mean,
active.
but is the septic in good condition?
It was fine. I suspect it's rated for far higher number of people than what we're proposing to do, since it was a church and a schoolroom.
Right.
So,
If that documentation on the septic system itself can be found and submitted, all the better.
Should be in
We
the.
could go look back in the files on the lot itself to see if that's.
Do we know
Thank-
when that addition was put in, or when the septic may have? The state of Maine has a website where you can go back and track what's called an HHE 200, which is septic designs,
Mhm.
back to, I believe, like the 70s.
Hmm.
So if we have an idea when that was, it may be possible to actually get a copy of the septic design. Probably not, but maybe.
Do you know when the addition was?
it's not in your files, for the town files, so
Okay.
your guess is as good as ours.
All right. Let's see, the type of any raw, finished, or waste materials to be stored inside or outside of roofed buildings. We're not talking about anything industrial here, so I don't think that is applicable. Traffic data, the planning board may require the application, including a traffic engineering study as a well-traversed location, but egress and, pulling into the lot, pulling out of the lot has been, I think, an issue in the past.
Unless you have a very big yoga class or very big congregation, I don't see much more traffic than would be at the town hall
Mhm.
during election time.
Yeah.
Actually, election time was a lot more traffic, so. And they got limited number of parking spaces to begin with.
Like 16 parking spaces.
And access is not off of 35, it's off of South Woodbury Road. So, first time I was in the need for a traffic study. No, so that's not okay.
No, unless on a public hearing, someone may require it.
Yeah, okay.
Any other
Let me get back to
information?
that for a quick
Sure.
second. On the off chance that there is an issue brought up about the traffic, have you considered looking to get an easement or permission through Aryan Lodge to exit through their parking lot
I haven't yet, but
which may be easier for people turning right onto South Waterboro, onto Goodwin's Mills Road.
Mhm.
They'd come out and make a right. Just to nip it in the bud before it becomes something.
Last item, I believe, is any other information or data the planning board determines is necessary to demonstrate compliance with town, state, and federal regulations.
So can I ask a question?
Please.
Okay, you're applying for a personal service business, which is allowed in this zone. And that would be, you said yoga studio? What else?
It would be yoga, it would be yoga, it would be Pilates probably, it could be fitness. I mean, that one big room is gonna be used for whatever the class is, so there won't be a lot of equipment, so it will be those types of things. And it won't hold that many people anyway. So, but yeah, yoga, Pilates, fitness, it could be small. You know, if we have something like a class or some sort of wellness, it would be held, you know, could probably.
Pretty much all wellness then?
It's all wellness related, yep.
I'm just, was gonna suggest if there's any other applications that you might want to try to go into in the future, you should ask for those now. I mean, personal services is sort of a catch-all. It says a business that offers a professional service such as, but not limited to, barbers, hairdressers, beauticians, masseuses, and tanning salons. Yeah, right, that's what I need, a tanning salon. But I mean, if there's any other, I'm not suggesting you would be doing other things there, but if you get a brilliant thought that you might want to do something else there that is covered under a different category, would be appropriate to ask for it, even if you weren't planning on doing it right away. That's all. I'm just suggesting that. That way you don't have to bother, you don't have to come back. Did I say bother? I didn't mean to say bother, but you won't have to come back and be bothered by the planning board or anybody else because it'll already be authorized. That's all. I mean, sometimes people want to, you know, take one use and then move it to another use and it becomes an issue.
We're just looking at the land use table itself to see if anything else might apply.
Yeah, you're probably fine where you are, but.
Does that have a commercial kitchen in it?
probably not the way you define commercial these days, but it did have a very large kitchen for when the church was.
I was gonna say
operating
the church for fundraising suppers or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
associated services and accessory use associated therein. So that would fit that, the church decides to have a bean supper or something.
Well, as long as you don't turn into a restaurant or something.
Oh, no, not yet. We're not, that hasn't even been on the radar.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying if that were on, you know, that you
Yeah.
thought about that. Because our categories are, I mean, there's a lot of weasel words in there, but, or some weasel words, shouldn't say a lot, but better to ask for more than find out that you have an issue later.
Well, one of the things that, the only other thing I can think of is that in the kitchen, and it would be absolutely later if we did this, is, would probably like to use that to show people how to cook.
Oh, and cooking classes.
Cooking classes and, yeah.
Educational.
Again, wellness based.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
On your uses, same for groups such as Lyman Historical Society, Goodwin's Mill Cemetery, that might fall under function hall. To allow for public and private meetings.
Yeah, cemetery's sort of health-based.
Oh, yeah.
that would be acceptable, you mean? It would be, or would it be?
I believe it's.
Function hall is, oh, no, not so fast, not so fast. Yeah, function hall is listed as no in residential zone, which it says. So,
Now, here comes the question. It was a grandfathered use while it was a church, it is now part of it is going to be back at church. And in church, there is accessory uses associated therewith.
now wait a minute, not so fast. When was the last time there was a church?
It's more than 2 years.
Been more than 2 years.
Right, but you're going to have a congregation there, correct?
I don't know about that. I'm not trying to give him a hard time, I'm just saying.
Right, just want to,
So,
Address it now before it becomes an issue later on. I agree.
yeah.
Not too many churches don't have a function hall associated with
Yeah.
them.
Right.
Yeah, the church allowed the use of it.
But the, what happens if the use is discontinued for a period of time?
And the function.
Would the primary function be?
Right.
If it's a church, it's a church. Even if one of its associated functions is discontinued, it's still a church.
Right.
The church is renting in the hall, that's a different story, but if it's using it for its own,
Yeah,
it's part of their,
Well, hasn't been a church all this time, has it?
been vacant for
It's been vacant,
years,
right?
yeah.
So how do we, reminds me of another unnamed project that was unused for a period of time that became an issue, or sort of an issue.
The way I'm looking at it is, forget the fact that it previous is historically a church. If this were a new construction going up across the street as a church, part of that church's infrastructure was to have a function hall so that they could
Right.
have a supper on Saturday before or after service or Sunday, or they need a new furnace. So they rent the hall out, and the hall rental generates revenue for them to afford
Yeah, but-
whatever
But in
expense.
this case here, the building has been vacant for a period of time, correct? Unused, I should say, not probably
It
vacant
has not been utilized as a,
as anything.
Is anything, right?
Is that true? I don't know, I'm asking.
wasn't it?
I believe God has been present all this time since they left.
But I'm not sure that applies to the planning board, but
so,
whatever.
so if they were applying to use it as a church, is it permitted in this area?
Right, but it
Sure.
requires a separate permit, I
So-
would think.
I don't know, we got two other churches right in
That's a question I would ask.
Yes, churches,
Absolutely.
churches allowed in residential areas,
Right.
site review.
And this is professional services.
Well, all I'm saying is let's try to take a look at the proposed uses and make sure that it is covered
It
by the
fits in as
application,
allowed.
so it doesn't turn into a problem later on. If somebody has a challenge to it or something else, that's all. Just try to get it nailed down up front. I mean, again, I don't say our zoning ordinance is perfect. It isn't, but it's what we have to deal with, so we can.
Right.
So maybe there's some way to, I'm just saying, just think about what you're gonna try to do and try to get as many of those uses in the application as possible, so that if you decide to do something different, you don't have to go to the bother of coming back and pay application fees or something else to get another look, which you probably don't wanna do anyway.
Thank you.
So I have a question, would the function hall be under your management, or would that be part of the lease to the church or whatever? So I think that would be, where there would be a difference. If you're going to rent out the function hall, then I think that would have to be specific
That is,
in the permit.
But that's not allowed in this zone.
And it's not allowed in this zone, but if the
Function,
church, if the
function.
function hall goes with the church and it's part of the church property, that you're, then,
The way I read your zoning, I don't believe the function hall is correctly, I don't believe it falls under that category, because we're not going to be charging rent. It's just, I know like the Lyman Historical Society and the Goodwins Mill Cemetery Association, they currently meet at the Masonic Hall right next door. And I know they both at different times have been looking for a more permanent home. So this is just to give them another option. We're certainly not going to charge them for it. So,
Yeah, as long as you don't, because function, under the definition of function hall, it says rented.
Yep.
So as long as you don't rent it, it sort of fits in. Okay.
Anything else? And we've got the sidewalk set for Saturday,
11th.
May 11th at 10 a.m.
correct.
And once again, the public, put you on the agenda for the next meeting. That's 2 weeks from today on May 15th. Earliest public hearing that we can hold on that would be what, the following?
June 5th
June 5th it is, the public hearing.
at 5:30.
What time was the sidewalk? I didn't hear that.
10 a.m.
10.
Any further questions?
I'm glad to see some use of the building.
We're excited. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep in mind the odd question, but is there, historical society, is there a bell in the building? And
There's a bell.
Kelly, what day was
stay
that?
there?
Yep.
Okay.
What day was that?
We hope
The
to
11th.
use it. We hope to get to use
Saturday.
it.
A lot of history to it.
We can use Saturday.
Why don't I ask?
Are you gonna have to spend a lot of money rehabbing the building?
Actually, surprisingly, it's in pretty good shape. Just more cosmetic stuff.
No, it's good to see a building get some use. And then what would that be? Let's see now, wait a second. Wouldn't that increase the assessment for that building?
Church.
But it's a church.
Some increased taxes. No, we're not in the tax business, but I'm sure the assessor watches every one of our meetings, so.
Mhm.
maybe-
I'm sure.
I doubt it. Nobody else does.
So we're all set?
Good luck.
Yeah. I
Sounds
think
like
we'll-
a
Okay, thank you very
much.
We'll
I
find
appreciate it.
that
Thank you.
that septic.
Yep.
information.
Yeah, sounds like a good, glad to see some use get on that.
Yeah.
Use, let it sit there.
Next on the agenda is Mr. Thing, but
Not
that is in abeyance right now.
We are investigating further, what he's doing, the size of the apartments. He wants to put 2 apartments over the garage that he built last year, I believe it was. There's some discrepancy between what he says the size is and the size that we found out on the plans, and whether it would constitute a subdivision or just ADUs, and so we're looking a little further into it.
Is that already existing possibly or not?
The garage was there,
What about the
the apartments were not there last we knew,
last one?
last we knew,
Oh, last we knew, yeah.
Now, there's an existing manufactured home on site, correct?
yes. Which would, if there's 2 apartments over the garage and they're bigger than the allowed ADU size, that would constitute a subdivision.
Doesn't our ordinance specifically say that anything more than 1 ADU automatically constitutes a subdivision?
Or multifamily.
Multi-family.
If
Multifamily.
things are not acreage, it could be multifamily.
Thought you'd have 3 units for a subdivision. Am I thinking wrong?
3 units is a subdivision, but I thought that you could have up to 2 residences, each with its own ADU if you had enough acreage. And he's got almost 20
20.
acres there, I believe.
Because I looked at that, I wasn't able to attend the meeting, and I was like, wait a minute.
So as it stands right now, though, Mr. Thing is in discussion with the code enforcement office for further guidance on this or clarification.
We're looking into it further. I know Becca has done some research
Mhm.
into the zoning and has talked to, I believe she talked to one of the gyms. So we're getting some further clarification. Also, she talked to Jim
Mhm.
about what's out there,
Okay.
so. We're covering all the bases, trying to figure out what's going on before we open up a bigger can of worms.
So I don't see no point in tabling this at this point, formally keeping it on the agenda. Because, we'll bring it up in old business at the next meeting, maybe.
If there's any update, I can let you know.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think that
Mhm.
just leave it off until we have more information.
Mhm.
We
Okay.
don't want
Satis-
to, we don't want to
satisfactory?
stir things up if we don't have to.
Satisfactory?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, subdivision performance guarantee.
Oh, yeah.
And Kevin, I believe you suggested some language here in a brief exchange I had with the town treasurer. I don't believe Jeanette LeMay has any difficulty with the extension of these other means by which the performance guarantee can be addressed. So, Kevin, you want to give us a little intro to what you suggest.
Yeah, I went over, reviewed the other towns that we looked at, Waterloo, Dayton, Scarborough, and Westbrook. And some of this language was, I found it from both Scarborough and Westbrook, had similar describing the performance bond running to the town or reputable letter of credit in a form from an issuer, except any form and from an issuer acceptable to the treasurer. I think it was Scarborough had another whole paragraph describing how the treasurer could figure that information out. But if it's, I think it's good, leave it up to the treasurer.
And if you do opt for the check in an escrow account, section 722 still applies. That's another 50% of your total cost of construction of all required improvements, correct?
Yes, all three forms of these would be 150%.
Okay. Any further discussion here?
Now, I have a question,
Sure.
when would this go into effect, since we have to wait,
Mhm.
is it about 2 years away, 2 years away?
Well-
Or is that,
Wait a minute. not
The town
fast.
manager gave me,
Yeah, I
Very
didn't
helpful.
think that required a vote.
because subdivisions is not an
Yes.
ordinance?
Plan board.
yep, from the Maine Municipal Association, it's from Ms. Vanier. Regulation is similar to an ordinance that it too has the force and effect of law and may likewise be enforced by court action. But municipalities do not generally adopt regulations, at least by that term, except where expressly authorized by statute to do so. Here's the important part here. Two examples of this are road weight limits, which may be adopted by municipal officers as rules or regulations, and subdivision regulations, which may be adopted by a planning board absent a subdivision ordinance.
Mhm.
So, we can do this. I think
Awesome.
what the approach could be now, send a recommendation to the town manager and to the select board that this revised language be adopted in our subdivision regulations and see what their sense of it is.
The only suggestion I might have, or I could have, or I do have, I don't know if I do or don't, but should we, question I'm just asking, as a courtesy or informational kind of thing, should we have a public hearing on this? I mean, it sounds like what we're doing is actually making the performance guarantee more, I'll say liberal is not the right word, but
Flexible.
more flexible, which would help developers, which is a positive thing. I don't know if anybody, I mean, let me put it this way, everybody's got an opinion, but anyway, I'm just throwing it out there whether or not the planning board ought to consider having a public hearing on this or not, just so that, because this is one of the few times that we can actually do something without getting it voted on every 2 years by the voters or whatever, if we're changing an ordinance. So, I mean, I can't see a downside. It seems to me like it's, as long as the treasurer and the town manager and the select board are okay with it, I don't see a downside on this. But I'm just asking whether you all think we should have a public hearing on this or not, or add it to a topic.
I don't see how it can hurt.
I mean, I don't want anyone to say, oh, well, they're doing this behind, but we're not, I mean, there's no, but could this benefit, the only, we have one subdivision pending, right? Just one, I think.
Harper's.
Harper's, I think, is the only pending one. So it might benefit them, but I don't, and I'm sure none of us have financial interest in that project or anything. We're not helping them. We're just trying to give them some flexibility. So, but I would suggest that as a thought anyway.
Even the one that's currently in place, if this became part of the regulations, I would think they could come back and
Ask
make
for-
application to change it
They could,
and use the new regulation to comply.
they could, yeah.
Okay.
I got a question. I'm a little ignorant on this one. What is an irrevocable letter of credit in a form or from an insurer acceptable to the town treasurer?
Sounds good.
It sounds good, but what is it and how is it enforceable? When I can remember a number of approved subdivisions that started and then went belly up. the developer went bankrupt. So how do you have an irrevocable letter of credit from a bankrupt corporation or business?
Well, the issuer
That's a
of
good
the
question.
letter of credit would be a financial institution acceptable to the town treasurer, would it not?
I
Way
would
to
think
read
so. It would be
Let's
some
say-
some financial institution,
Yeah,
insurance
let's
company.
say- Have a
Not
major
the builder
development.
themselves.
And I'm going through Morgan Stanley. And everything's going great, fine, and wonderful, and the market crashes. My company goes belly up. I no longer have credit. So,
Well,
During-
Morgan Stanley would be on the hook, right?
The irrevocable would mean that I think that the
right,
The
credit.
lending institution.
Everyone's
the
credit
lending
rises and
institution
falls,
has
hopefully it all goes
priority over
up.
the assets of the,
But if your credit crashes, what do you have for assets to back up that line of credit that is now gone?
Well, that would be the responsibility of the financial institution to weigh their risk in extending the line of credit. So I think
I don't believe there's a bank that would give you a line of credit without some backing.
need some asset to back it up.
Yes.
Yeah, but we've seen major institutions crumble overnight that were bedrocks. I bring the name Silicon Valley,
Lehman Brothers.
Lehman Brothers, Wells Fargo,
No, that's still around.
but just,
Yeah.
and so the institution gives a line of credit, the company goes bankrupt, and now this parcel is on their portfolio, they're gonna
Yeah.
dump it.
Well, what I'm hearing is the description of a catastrophic fail. That would be of such magnitude that
I know of a number of subdivisions that have been on the books for, 15, 20 years, and all there is a gravel road going through where it's supposed to be. And say they had a letter of credit, but the developer goes bankrupt.
well, yeah, I think the
safest
way
is
it reads
to
here, I think
deposit
the,
into an account. That's the safest way, but
That was Kevin from, say, Westbrook or Gorham. They had that term in there.
Yes.
I'd be curious how it's enforceable.
Well, I would also say that the last sentence is sort of a catch-all. It says, no permit shall be issued, blah, 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 until the performance guarantee has been fully approved by the town treasurer. So.
due diligence there.
There is a point there that with the town treasurer, and the other thing is, I'm not saying it has to be done, but should we, does this wording have, or should this wording be looked at by the town attorney? Just to make sure there's no, I think of it, my personal feeling is if the town treasurer is okay with it, that is their responsibility. But,
City of Bangor, town treasurer is elected.
was elected.
It's elected.
Oh, boy.
4 years ago, they elected a person that can't add 1 and 1. He's been collecting a paycheck. They had to hire a finance director for $80,000 a year to do his job. And he sat there, got paid. So, see, I think a bond is good.
A check deposited is
A
good.
check deposited is good. The line of credit, I questioned that when I heard that too.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just-
I don't know, I'm not a financial expert one way or the other. I try to balance my checkbook and not owe anything on my credit cards. I never pay interest on my credit cards. Pay it off every month, or don't buy it. But besides all that, I'm just thinking, the planning board has the wording, and I think we need to try to get the wording that's acceptable to the responsible person is the treasurer, as far as I see. But, I don't have I don't have a problem one way or the other on this.
How about doing two things here, running this by Jeanette
Hmm.
Yeah.
and scheduling a public hearing to get any public feedback on it.
Yeah, because there may be some other things that we don't know about, but, I don't think any of us we don't have an axe to grind one way or the other here. We just want to make sure that the town's protected.
So could we add this to the public hearing
Yeah.
scheduled on the 5th of June?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Piggyback on that.
And-
you want to check with the treasurer first, though? Because she may, well, you haven't had that discussion with her, Kevin?
I don't know.
Oh, you're not, okay.
I said in
Because
passing, actually,
she
yeah.
probably would be the first person that I would talk to see, she would know what that irrevocable letter of credit means.
Mhm.
And whether that's a risky, but you may say total risk and we wouldn't even want
Yeah.
to adopt it.
I kind of walked through these three options with her a while ago, maybe a week or so ago,
Yeah,
and no objection right then and there, but running the actual language past Jeanette is probably the best bet. And
Yeah.
Julie, could you forward that to her for her feedback?
I can.
Does that sound?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's good,
We're fortunate, she's pretty knowledgeable.
right.
And it still would be time, we still could do it at the same, because that public hearing's not until the
June
June 5th.
June 5th.
So what sort of a notification would it have to be? Would it just have to be in the paper and posting on the boards? Because you don't notify butters. It would be
No, there's
all-
no-
That's a general townwide notification.
Yeah.
Just a notification, I would suggest, yeah, just a notification, because there's no butters involved.
I'd put it
Just in
on,
the paper and-
put it on the town's website.
With this language?
Yeah.
Because it's-
All right,
I just don't want to see the municipality get stuck.
Yeah.
I agree.
Indeed.
Right.
Which can be,
You never know.
why
you
did
might
they
get
go
some
with
comments.
the?
But
check
I
in the
think
first
we
place?
heard from the applicants too, that the one, the way we do it is very costly to them.
Yes, that I wholeheartedly agree. I'm for the bond or the
They don't want
check.
to put a damper on.
Right.
Yeah.
We want is 38
It's costly,
Concord
but
through subdivision.
It's
Go bankrupt.
secure, much more
and Be
secure.
repossessed by the town. Taken over by lien.
All right, set the agenda for the next meeting. So we'll have Ms. Martin and Mr. Joyce back in. We've got an application for the use of what was Ashley's restaurant on 111. As I interpret it, it would be sort of a gallery of sorts. So they'll be on the agenda next time around. Other items?
That question, that's the one that came in for metering, correct?
No, it
That was next door.
It's the same property.
Same
Same
property.
property.
Right.
I understood that Ashley's was not in line.
I was gonna say, the restaurant itself is not live.
It's
Oh.
Dayton.
Not
Remember,
Arundel.
yes, because
So are we speaking of what was the meter read?
The meter is my interpretation.
Okay.
Are you sure about that, on the, where the border is?
right,
Yeah,
As
it's
a matter of
very
fact,
odd.
because
Yeah.
that party owned both buildings
It cuts through
and
the.
but the cafe part of it, they had to
Was
go
that in,
Arundel.
Arundel?
around,
So-
it, yeah.
She's just coming in next meeting to discuss, because she does know the property covers both towns. And I did tell her that she would have to work with both towns.
With both towns, okay.
All right. Anything else on the agenda?
What about the, did you, I don't know if you wanted to discuss, or maybe, well, the applicant's not here though, about that business with the subdivision roadways, or not?
I think, well, that's
You're gonna wait till,
Harper? Is-
Yeah.
That's on our agenda today for old business.
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
And if you don't mind, before we get, well, let me see. Anything else on the agenda?
That's all I had, was
Okay.
Ashley's, formerly Ashley's,
Okay.
and the church doing the sidewalk and
Subject to modification as we go.
Mhm.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the proposed agenda as proposed.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second it.
any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the minutes, just keeping with the list that we have here, everyone get the opportunity to review the minutes of the April 17th, 2024 meeting. Any edits to suggest?
we know you're dying to suggest them.
I can't find it. It was something like a the, which you should have taken out the word the,
Yeah,
and that was a specific word. I'm like, I got a phone call, so I stopped what I was doing. I went back to work.
All right. Any suggested changes? Chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written.
No,
Second,
I'll second.
discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Just get this rolling here. And it's Kelly, but Bill was present and a voting member at that time. If you don't mind, if you go through a couple other things here and there, and then go back to Harper, because that I think is going to engender a little bit of discussion.
Okay.
Let me see. It was news to me, but Julie shared with me a email coming out of SMPDC saying that Lee J. Feldman is moving on.
What? Oh, no.
Yeah. As is Hannah Watson,
oh, no.
Oh,
Wow.
but not Hannah Bodine, Hannah Watson.
It's not good news.
So in the interim, this will be in reduced capacity to provide planning board support services, but know that we have many experienced land use planners on staff. Please continue, feel free to reach out. And we're in the process of trying to fill those positions. That's a big loss. And the ETA is-
Yeah, he's a great asset.
Yes, indeed. All right. Now, the planning board received an email communication from Ms. Evelyn Ward, stated the 19th of last month. I watched the planning board meeting regarding backlots. We have lived in Lyman for only 10 years, but my family goes way back as Mainers. We ourselves aren't going to build a backlot, but such a setup is very common. Many homes have a shared driveway accessing a main road, sometimes owners being related and sometimes not. Interesting, this may come up as an ADU law, as the ADU law is discussed. There are situations where when the building home had main road access and a shared driveway was used for an additional dwelling. I understand if a shared driveway for a backlot dwelling isn't approved, they may have the zoning board of appeals address. Thank you, everyone, for doing this very hard work for our community. Sincerely, Evelyn Lord. And what I suggested was a response to Ms. Lord. Thank you for your input on backlots. In our correspondence answering a realtor's inquiry on backlots, we make reference to section 633 of the Lyman zoning ordinance. I believe the requirements set forth in that section correspond to the traditions and situations that you mentioned in your email. On behalf of the planning board, thanks again for sharing your thoughts. Without objection, or if you wish to edit, please do so.
Does that, do you think 633 covers it? It says new, you're talking about on page 20, it says new backlots,
I believe so.
lots without frontage on a town or private road may be created. Yeah, I've got there's no A there, it starts with B, strange, but may be created.
Yeah,
Backlot should be laid out.
but if that's the section that I found that will most
Yeah.
directly addressed
There is,
backlots.
there is some more backlot information that, not necessarily conflicting, but in the subdivision standards. Article 817 basically states the planning board, you basically have to prove to the planning board certain things to get a backlot approved.
817.
So,
Okay, on page 21, on to 22. So would you suggest that that be added to this response?
Yes, I believe the zoning ordinance section 633 basically has the performance standards for a backlot that's not part of a subdivision.
Uh-huh.
And I have actually a perfect example of that right here. This is a 4-lot division. It was a family division, so it did not go to the planning board. And You can see the 300-foot diameter circles,
Mhm.
that the requirements were met, although that's probably if that went to planning board, I wouldn't approve it because those lots are horrible. One of them, like lot 2 is like 60% wetlands.
Yeah.
With the right of way going through the middle of it. The building envelope is the size of a single wide.
Holy cow, who approved, was that approved a long time?
No, it was a family division, so
Oh,
it's one of the loopholes. There's the
I was
crack
gonna
there.
say,
If it's
one of the former CEOs, basically, because I had questioned what I perceived to be a potential upcoming subdivision, and I was informed benefit as a family member to a family member. It's out of our purview, and we do not have the authority, which is sad, because that can create a lot of,
That's basically, it's done. I mean, it's done by an engineer surveyor and then recorded without any review from anybody.
And such are the regulations that exist like that.
so that would address her issue where family members have sold to family members.
Yes.
Now, the sad part is what happens when those are sold outside of the family, you know? I'll use the example around 2006, 2007 in Westbrook. There was a group that was going on buying tracts of land, putting family compounds in, and it was, the developer sold it to a cousin, and then the next house was built, the next cousin, and then 3 terms later, in 2 years, it was out to the general public.
well, I think, Joe, were you gonna mention this section in the,
Yeah, I could add that,
might be a good
813
idea.
of the subdivision regulations, and also added to the response to Mr. Jeremy France, who sent an inquiry into Julie about whether one backlot is allowed off a shared driveway, what is the required driveway widths and specs, and how does Lyman calculate acreage within developments? Are wetlands removed from the calculation or not? They are not. So,
well, wait a minute, is that the guy, no offense to anybody watching, but is that the person who was trying to get us to do homework for him? You didn't want to read the ordinance? Am I missing? Well, I think it's someone else.
Maybe.
No, I mean, he's asking some hypothetical questions of the planning board. My suggestion is, Mr. Applicant, if you want to apply and come have a preliminary meeting or something and fill out some paperwork, come and do it, but don't ask us questions that we're gonna sit down and take time to answer. I mean, we're here for public service, but is that part of the public service or not, is my question.
well, what I suggested was responding by referring to the sections of the ordinance for him to
That's fine. That'd be
read
good.
and interpret. And
Yeah,
I would, again, thanks to him, add 817 of the subdivision regulations in that one
Yes.
too.
I was gonna say, once you go from 2 units sharing a driveway to creating a third housing, now we're in a minor subdivision.
Mm.
And I personally would think, unless it's proven otherwise, that it would have to be brought up to minor subdivision standards.
So I've got a question on that. It says in here that,
Where you
that, it's 633, section 4.
Mhm.
It says, you have to have access by private way from a publicly accepted road by easement, and the easement will be constructed in accordance with the street acceptance, design, and construction standards. Does that mean 50-foot right of way, so much gravel, paved, et cetera?
Yeah, it's not a driveway. It's a road.
Oh, that's my question. I mean, because that, I mean, that's gonna
Right.
pretty much bankrupt anybody that wants to put a house in.
Mhm.
Depending on the size of the subdivision. If you're still at, no,
No,
thinking-
you're just talking one house,
One house.
and you're gonna access it as a backlot on a private way. Does that private way have to meet the 50-foot requirements, the gravel, the drainage, the paving?
The way it reads.
Yes. all new roads. That's why we have a standard.
Mhm.
Any new road has to follow the standard.
Well, it may be that that area needs some review.
Mm.
Only in us.
Well, the question that I bring up is, you would build it to the town standards if the town was going to accept it and maintain it. But if the town's not going to accept it, is there another standard that can be used?
Well, could I remind you of we had a recent application that was a private way off of a private way, I believe, right? Which led to a town road, and that was sort of I think we came to a reasonable resolution of that,
Mhm.
but I think it's an area where possibly the wording could be improved,
Mhm.
because you don't want to force, I mean, some things don't make sense,
Yeah, and
you know?
something else to think about if the implementation of LD 2003 comes into effect, now we're looking at potential of 4 residential units on one lot.
Hmm.
Well, that's a hypothetical, but
Still something to consider.
For
Well-
streets and roads, I mean, we have an ordinance for it, so it
Yeah,
has to
that's
be
the problem.
complied with.
We have
Anything new,
no-
anything existing is grandfathered, but
Mhm.
anything new has to be constructed according to.
With the potential for 4
It
lots.
doesn't necessarily say paved, right?
Oh, I believe that requires it to be paved. That's part of the standard.
Right.
But I'm thinking of the state's mandate on ADUs, okay?
Right.
And part of the problem there is the fact that if you build an ADU for a child, they can't get a mortgage because they don't own the property.
Right.
Right.
And then you put on the fact that they gotta have a paved road to get into that back lot. You just priced them out of the market.
Well, an ADU wouldn't go an ADU does not go on its own lot. An ADU is an accessory.
That's correct,
in
but if
license.
you've got a 5 acre lot and you put an ADU on it,
Right,
all right, and it's a back lot,
But it wouldn't be on the same lot, would it? It would be a
It'd
separate.
be
it would be
Same.
on the same lot.
So it wouldn't be a back lot then? Would it?
it wouldn't be a new back lot. It
No.
would just be another unit on
On
that
that
same
same
lot.
lot?
You could be
It
right.
sounds like
Yeah.
a tongue twister.
Yeah. Well, no. It's just, I keep
Not
thinking of these things
Yeah, I
and, the stuff is out there and it's like, you just, it's like dangling a carrot because it's like, hey, you can do this, but you can't unless you can pay for it, and it's like,
The rules apply, right?
yeah,
But I think if it's an ADU and it's on the same lot, then that has to be a different kind of story there. I don't think we
That would
can.
not be a new back lot.
Right.
Yeah, it wouldn't, I don't think it would create a new back lot because it's all on the same lot. Now, in the future, if the zoning were changed and the lot sizes, somebody might try to split that off and then there could be an issue. I don't know. I mean, it gets complicated. You can't cover all situations, but ADUs is supposed to be on the same lot right now, at least, unless
Yeah.
somebody.
No, I realize that. I'm just thinking about, we need more housing.
Mhm.
We need it to be affordable and this doesn't make it affordable. That's the only point I was making. That's all.
It's a reasonable point.
So I'll make those adjustments to the response to Ms. Lord and to Mr. Prince.
Okay.
Get that to Julie for sending out. Let's see, I did phone call Mr. Garen Shaw over at the Gorham Sand and Gravel. He recollects the conversation with Mr. George Stewart of Annex 207. I said, we're really playing a telephone game here. I just asked, and he agreed to contact directly Mr. Stewart, and once again, discuss any concerns that they have with respect to the clearing of trees in that area and the effect on the kind of sound barrier for Mr. Stewart's
207.
business, 207. So that's where that was.
But there's nothing, I mean, the permit that was finally issued for 207 doesn't address that, does it?
No, it does not.
I mean, I'm not saying it should, I'm just saying.
And a butter has made adjustments.
Hmm.
Mhm. That's outside of Mr. Stewart's direct influence, so.
Yeah.
So hopefully the line of communication is there. I was going to bring up the issue of Gmail accounts. Devin, Sue, and I had made one, but Kelly's brought up a good point here in looking at the acceptable use agreement for the town of Lyman.
Oh, yeah.
And if I'm reading this correctly, it's essentially a situation where official business should be conducted through an email system through the town, and not something outside of that. Lyman owns the email system and information transmitted and stored within it. Users have no expectations of privacy. Individuals must not send, forward, or receive protected or confidential information to non-Lyman email accounts. Examples of non-Lyman email accounts include, not limited to, Gmail, Yahoo.
Yeah.
and
That's gonna
email
put it on your
by any,
tombstone, but not limited to.
So-
These are words.
Well, when I read that just quickly, you know, I read every word of the employee manual, whatever it was,
57 pages.
Yeah.
whatever. But when I read that, I said, wait a minute, does that mean if I use right now I'm continuing to use my personal email for, not when I'm doing any business, but to transmit information amongst planning board members, does that mean that somebody has complete access to that? I will point out that I did receive a freedom of access FOAA request in the past year.
Mhm.
And I did a quick look through I did a search through my emails and forwarded that information to the town manager. And then I said, if you want me to go through all the other emails I have, please provide a charge number. And I will be happy to spend my time doing that at your expense. And was not requested to do anymore. But I'm a little concerned there because if we sign that document, does that mean that the town has access to your private email or what?
No, I would perceive it that way. I think it's a statement of town's obligation to provide us with an account for official business that we're conducting.
That's what it sounds like to me, like the town should be supplying us with that.
We haven't
So-
gotten one so far.
How about the,
And particularly, it specifically states Gmail, Yahoo, and others are not acceptable or allowed
or at least in terms of,
for correspondence, which our correspondence is official business of the planning board.
So, without objection, I'll bring this up for discussion with the town manager and ask
Yeah, I'd like you to clear it
what
up.
the proper interpretation is, and if it is a situation where the town is obligated to provide us with a separate email account for official business.
So be it.
Fine. Good. Okay, but I'll bring that up.
Okay.
Thank you.
It just caught my attention because I'm going down
Well done.
those 6 pages of attachments, read. It caught my attention and flagged it.
Yeah.
I missed that one.
Just as everyone received this email dated Monday of this week with respect to the upcoming select board meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And so, as you may already know, we have a new CEO who will be taking on the codes department once the select board has appointed them at the next regular meeting to ensure that they are successful in their new endeavor. I feel it would be beneficial to have a meeting with all parties involved in this department to clarify procedures and expectations. It was also recommended by a consultant to have the town's attorney review with the planning board their legal obligations and purview. Brad Moore will be in attendance at the next select board meeting, and there'll be an executive session to discuss roles and responsibilities of the planning board in relation to the codes department and town manager. I encourage all of you to attend. The meeting will be on Monday at Monday the 6th of May, 6 p.m. And the executive session will be the second agenda item. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me.
Well, may I just ask a question? Are there any issues that we know of? Well, maybe that's not a good question to ask. I guess we'll find out.
We exist.
Well, yeah, that's on the scheduled for Monday?
So Monday, I'll be there.
Yeah, I'm planning on trying to,
I am.
as long as I remember, which is a possibility, I might remember.
Maybe Julie can send us an
Put it in
APB.
my book, so.
Send us an APB on Monday morning.
Yeah, and I have already corresponded with Lindsay that due to prior commitments, I will not be making it. So I'm not sure how I will find out any information that is dispersed because it's an executive session
Oh,
and
that's
cannot be
right.
dispersed afterwards. So that's kind of a catch-22, but
Right.
I don't know. I'll find out in 2 weeks.
Okay, just that reminder. Hope you don't mind just run through a number of things, then back to Harvard, because again, I think it's going to take a little time for discussion. Notices of decision were signed for the YMCA, Cardiff, and Hewitt. The letter on Almond Plain Brewing was sent. We still have Mr. Roberts and Mr. Erlair as our interim CEOs at this point. Bill, you mentioned getting in contact with Lee J for the Maxon situation on Cottage Road, which I did so. He responded back, and I forwarded that response on Lee J's response to the Maxons, and they acknowledge receipt of that and will proceed as they see fit. Nothing new on the Bridgmans because we need a CEO for them to provide guidelines. That's the doc on Barker's Park. Nothing new on Mr. Martino and the Huts and the EP. Let's see, all quiet on the southern front from the gravel pit from the boys.
Oh, that's good.
So,
Yep, we like that.
good. And Mr. Platts did provide the home occupancy permit. And still,
Still waiting for some information from him. He
okay.
was working on it.
And that's all the carryover from previous meetings that I can recall.
Well, thanks for doing that, Joe.
No?
Thanks for that stuff.
Okay, now, Harper.
Yeah, that's sort of interesting.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. There we go.
No.
Now, a little money cutting to the chase here, but the bottom line, do they need paved?
Well, this. They have 9 lots.
That they do. Which had the, Mr. Martin, Joe Martin, had highlighted sections of the street ordinance of one, and essentially saying that the project that they propose would not require paved private roadways.
I think you could read it that way. The only issue that I would have is that since I live in a 10-house but my subdivision is 10 houses, so that's the problem. But the only thing I would point out is that if the subdivision is not paved upon construction, number one, I would suggest that it'll never be paved. There's absolutely no chance that the town would accept that road as a town road. And it puts the people who buy houses in that subdivision at a disadvantage in the sense that they're not getting a decent road. It's one thing, and I guess really the thing is if you do 9 lots, do you have to pave it or not? I mean, you could say, well, it says 10, so then maybe you don't have to pave it. But is the only question I would ask is can the planning board still require that to be paved without exceeding our infinite authority?
I believe that was under our purview, and I remember discussing it being paved with sidewalks and curbing. Because one of the other things, if I'm remembering this one correctly, they were placements showing where the storm drains were because of the slope of the road.
Mhm.
So it's kind of hard to have storm drains in there and runoff if the road's gravel.
Yes, right.
That's my recollection. I could be wrong, but that's my recollection.
Also says in here, occupancy permits may only be issued upon completion of the base coat of pavement of all subdivision roads.
Oh,
Yeah.
where are you
It's-
looking
That's
at?
on page 24 of the subdivision regulations, right?
Right,
And if sort of, if you kind of put it into greater context, you take a look at the provision above that. All roadways within the subdivision shall be constructed according to the Town of Lyman Street Acceptance, Design, and Construction Standards Ordinance adopted by the town on November 5th, 2019. And then, as Seal just read, no occupancy permits unless issued upon completion of the base coat of pavement of all subdivision roads. But if our street acceptance and design construction standards doesn't require pavement, if it's as, less than 10 lots, well,
so does it say that in about less than 10 lots in the streets and acceptance?
you check on page 12, what we have there,
Yeah,
which is one of the sections that Mr. Barton asked us to review. The second column of requirements, exempt and non-exempt 2 to 10 lots or dwelling units. And there you have right of way, 50 feet, travel width, 20 feet, base gravel standard and DOT type D. All the way down to the terminus has to be a hammerhead for,
And what is
Versus
MDOT type B? Is that
yeah.
that's pavement, right?
well, no, it says,
That's
bituminous,
base gravel. That's base
bituminous
gravel.
pavement about halfway down in there.
Okay,
It
right.
says, for 2 to 10, it says apron at intersection with paved road only. So this would imply that you could do it with type D gravel, base gravel, and then 3 inches of crushed, and then shows crushed aggregate, et cetera. I'm not an expert on roads by any means, but it would appear that exempt and non-exempt.
Mhm.
And I was always under the impression that we had to have paved roads, but I don't know that that is correct for the street ordinance.
I think that's, we have required all the subdivisions that we've had.
We haven't had that many
So,
though.
no, but I mean, over the years that we've been here,
Yeah.
we've always required paving.
So
And they have to have underground
Oh, underground utilities.
utilities and the proper drainage and, I don't know, how can you do that with a road?
Yeah, that's another point, isn't it?
You wouldn't have to do that if you were just building
Mhm.
a single unit. You don't have to have underground utilities.
I would assume, I don't know if the applicant would want to provide more information, but they probably want to save money.
Well, most definitely.
Yet on the other hand, you'll build whatever.
But didn't we require Brock Road, paved
Yeah.
road, and everything
Yes.
else?
Yes, we did.
Number of lots there.
Was 9.
Of the 10?
I think it was 10 lots. I think it was. 10.
Yeah, it was at that, because I was arguing that the separate land constituted an additional lot,
Yes.
and I met resistance with that.
Well,
And the other thing, there's another place
yeah, you're back on page 5, I think. Seal.
on the subdivision, right?
Actually, I think you're referring to page 5 of the
Street?
street
Acceptance.
acceptance.
Yes. New subdivisions connecting directly to existing public streets must upgrade the public streets to the applicable road construction standards if it is determined by the planning board that the subdivision will have a detrimental effect on the condition of the public street. the level of service at nearby intersections impacted by a subdivision, and the carrying capacity of existing public streets, and then the one above it.
Yeah,
New subdivisions connecting directly to existing private street or ways must upgrade the existing private street or way to the applicable road construction standards from the point of entrance from a public way onto the existing private road to the point of intersection with the new private road.
my apologies, but Kennebunk Road, off which this subdivision would be built, does that belong to Lyman?
Which road?
Kennebunk Road?
Yes, that's
And down,
not a state road, right?
that's not a state road.
No.
But,
It's access
No,
to
but-
Alfred, but that portion is in line with zone by
Right.
line.
Was that the portion that was discontinued by the select board
Uh,
last year?
That was the access to it. From the,
yeah, access.
there was the
Okay.
abandoned access.
Right. If I remember correctly, is it plowed by Alfred?
Yes, the road is maintained by Alfred, which was one of our concerns.
Right.
The municipal services, fire would be handled through Alfred. We discussed school busing or busing of the children. How's that gonna be affected? Who's going to be responsible for it?
We're talking about maybe a memorandum of understanding between the towns on
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, okay.
So it says under public street here that the term street shall not include those ways that have been discontinued or abandoned. So that leaves it have to be private. But from what I read in there, it's got to meet the standards of this section, which means it's got to be paved.
But as Kelly just mentioned, what was discontinued, wasn't that section of Kennebunk Road that kind of connects Kennebunk Road that comes off of Old North Berwick with what goes through Alfred? Is that what was discontinued?
No, it's the paved portion of the road that went through there. It's
Mhm.
called the Kennebunk Road.
Mhm.
That section at the end was discontinued.
Back when there was a gate, because when we
Right,
did the
yeah,
site walk, originally access was like 50, 75 feet past the gate, and they altered the access to scoot around that. What is that? They came in closer to the house and then jogged in.
Mhm.
Ooh, that one's going down the road, and this one here, because there was this one, and then they were gonna, right next door, sweep it in.
This is the most recent.
Yeah, when's the date for this one?
There should be in your.
Yeah, I got it, it's right there.
Well, the other thing I would say is, since this doesn't have 10 houses, this is no more than that, this says 9 lots, right?
Mhm.
Then it's definitely, it would have to be a private way, right? And then under, on page 12, 2.3, private way construction standards. It says exempt and not exempt 2 to 10 lots or dwelling units, it does not require paving there in that table. Now, the question I would have is whether the planning board has flexibility to require that anyway. And I'm not trying to raise the cost of any project, but
Right.
the only thing I would point out is that if it's, if it's not paved at the beginning, it'll never be paved.
Right.
And then you're creating nine lots there with dirt roads, and it's gonna be a disadvantage to those homeowners forever.
And about that, I don't mean to tell any business how to conduct its business, but wouldn't it be more attractive to have paved roads for these lots?
Definitely
Just,
would be. And, that's something I would suggest as a new homeowner, like when I moved in, I was certainly happy that the road was paved. I don't know what I would have done if they'd have said it was a dirt road.
I know the homeowners association now would have to address maintenance of
Yes,
a dirt road, and that would be a nightmare to maintain. I mean, those roads have to be crowned.
it'll never be right.
Very good
Right,
point.
and the drainage, how does the drainage work on a road like that? So,
Which is what, like I said, I remember specifically discussing paved, curved sidewalks and catch basins.
right,
Because when we walked that, it was up and down. We also skirted by the brook, which one of our concerns is runoff pollution.
Right.
You know, so,
It's not the best location, but that's what they're proposing, so.
and also access for emergency vehicles too.
That's right. You know, they have
So-
letterheads in there.
Section 2.3.2 says that for private ways construction standards,
2.3.2.
2.3.2, it says bituminous pavement, apron at intersection with paved road only.
I'm sorry.
What
Just
does,
one lot.
What page are you on?
Okay,
2 to 10 lot? Why,
page 12 of road standard,
The road
second
standards.
column.
Mhm.
With,
That's right.
with
Yeah, that's what it says.
with paved road only. Minor. Intersection
Maybe there's some other way to.
paved.
Well, would it be possible, I know it's asking for a lot of people to weigh in at the same time, but maybe invite Mr. Martin back in at the next meeting for, to address questions that we have. Ask our town road commissioner to weigh in on this. And Hannah Bonine from Southern Maine, who had looked at this beforehand. And at that point, if I recall correctly, she made no mention of a requirement for paving. She merely stated that preliminary designs for the two proposed private ways follow 2.0 private ways, the town of Lyman street acceptance and design and construction standards. Clarification is needed on the angle of the street intersection for Solis Road. Required 75 to 90 degrees. And I did speak to Hannah Bonan about looking at this again. She didn't have the particulars, so we'll see if we can get those over to her. What do you think?
I think it's a good idea. And then after that, if then it would be a case of whether the planning board wants to pursue requirement of paved road or not.
so it says at the bottom here, the section of the private way that's within 25 feet of the edge of the street pavement, so where it's coming in,
Yeah.
has to be constructed for a distance of 25 feet with at least 2 inches of bituminous pavement. But it sounds to me like, other than the asphalt, after that, they just have to meet the basic underlaying requirements
Yep.
and just not pave it.
Yeah, see, that's it.
Hmm.
Mm.
But that says 2 to 10 lots, but I think 10 bumps it that you have to pave it. I think it's really 2 to 9 lots.
Well, it says 2 to 10.
I know.
We should be inclusive.
My concern from an engineering point of view, we don't have road profiles in the sketch, but looking at the proposed contours, these are some serious road grades here.
Yeah.
And having that many steep slopes on gravel road, it's gonna be a nightmare. It's gonna be a washout year after year. Storm after storm, the storm's not getting any easier on us. That's my concern with gravel road.
You can find out what Cecily's point about the homeowners association, that'd be a heck of a thing to put into the
That would be awful,
annual basis.
right?
Yeah, so you have $400 a month homeowners association fee.
Monthly.
Those are on the cheap side from what I see.
That's right.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, Keywood is upwards of 600. I'm serious.
So, what do you think of the idea of asking Mr. Martin to stop on by at the next meeting on 15th? See if Tom Crow can weigh in on this as well, and Ms. Bonan, and ask questions, particularly as your point in terms of the lack of contours on this, Kevin, and Cecile, the homeowner association burden on this. Where do we go from here?
Right,
And there might be compromise too. A lot of places require any road grade steeper than, say, 10% have to be paved. regardless. So looks like there's a lot of stretches that might come into play there.
Hmm.
It might not be like paving the whole thing, but at least steep piece.
In the subdivisions we've done in the past, we have not wavered paving.
We have not, that's right.
Yeah, but
That's
maybe
all-
we weren't correct.
That always been a requirement.
I don't know, but remember, this is, well, I mean, again, the other choice would be to look to see whether there's a way, there's a legal way for the planning board in its infinite wisdom to require the paving over and above the requirements. You know, in other words, that might be a,
I believe
I don't know,
that there is some place that we do have the authority to
I
make
don't want the town to get
more restrictions.
sued, but on the other hand, I don't think we ought to approve a project that gives up.
If I remember correctly,
What's the problem?
back in the late 80s, early 90s, the town voted not to accept any more roads as town roads. Period.
My road was accepted in '05 or '06.
I realize that, but I'm saying back around 1990,
Yeah.
it was a townwide vote not to accept any more roads. Even if they were brought up to town standards, they would not accept.
I think with the ordinance that was adopted, the ordinance that was adopted in 2019, the bar is quite high for the countenance accepting the road as a public way, intentionally so,
Mhm.
and rightfully so.
No, I understand.
But I think if there are discrepancies, that our ordinance does specifically state that the more rigid rule applies. So if you can't get an occupancy permit in a subdivision without the completion of the base coat of pavement on all subdivision roads, then it wouldn't matter. That would, to me, that's the most restrictive.
Well, I know if you
rule.
read some of the sections, they all allude to that. These requirements are required.
Right.
You know, even though it opens that little bit of leeway for question, but it says we have to meet these requirements.
And if we acquiesce and allow them the installation of a gravel driveway, what type of negative impact would that have on the overall marketability and appeal to the general public of subdivisions within the town of Lyman?
Right.
Well, that's a hypothetical.
Yep, and that actually can be weighed, but
Yeah. Okay. So let's do that. No objection. Invite Mr. Martin, Ms. Bonine, and Mr. Croto, and see if we can get some resolution on this.
so true.
Do we have anything else for discussion?
I had something and I forgot it. I guess it can't be that important if I forgot it and didn't write it down. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say.
Here it is.
There it is. As reluctantly, we're going to have to accept Mr. Herman's non-committal to the board again. I would like to see if we can send her a letter to the selectmen and the town manager suggesting, urging that Bill Singleton be appointed to full voting member when Don's term expires.
Agreed?
Do I have to vote on that?
So you're saying you're rescinding your resignation?
No, no, no. No, it's not a resignation, it's just a request not to be reappointed.
Not
So,
even by force?
No, no, it's time.
No coercion.
Give you a Snickers bar if you do.
No, no, too late.
so what were you gonna make a recommendation? Is that what the thought
Make a
was?
recommendation to the select board that
Oh,
you
okay.
be appointed to a full voting member upon the expiration of Don's term.
It's a good point.
Without objection.
Politically correct.
Julie, could you prepare a note to that effect?
Could I ask if there's any more, are there any more applicants? Because we're down one alternate member now.
I have not heard of any.
any applicants that are considered.
Well, I don't know, I just wondered.
We
Would be
don't, we don't
foolish not to
know,
join
we don't
the
know
board.
who applies because it's a secret, you know, so.
I've not had any word about any other applicants.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So if there's any public member that wishes to join this board, please send in an application.
I hope so.
So I'll draft the letter if that's okay.
It actually is a good board to be on, I gotta say.
So I have a question on this, along the same line, because my term, I think, comes up in June. Do we need to reapply?
Yes,
As of the
yes.
last
you better do it
Turnaround,
soon
you have to
because
reapply.
Yes.
Prior to, we just said I'll still be on the board and we were done. As of the last time, you have to fill out another application and be cursed in.
You need to be interviewed and
No, I reapplied last time I was appointed. I submitted an application. I don't think I was interviewed by anybody,
you weren't interviewed. no.
but I put an application, which I think
It's a
is
new procedure.
With the
to
town
is
interview.
fair.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it.
So,
Anyway,
glad you brought that up. All right. Anything else, folks?
Move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
second.
Any discussion? No, all those in favor?
Aye.
I knew that's what you were
Very much,
looking for.
everyone. Oh, goodness me.
It seems like when you just learn something, it's time to reapply.
This is, I mean,
We need to get some more.
I was waiting.